Do you feel like you're barely keeping your head above water? That no matter how hard you try, meaningful progress remains out of reach? Heather gets that. She battled an eating disorder for years before seeking help. Now in recovery, Heather is here to tell you that positive change is possible even when it doesn't feel that way. Join her as she shares openly about her struggles and small triumphs. Fair warning though, Heather doesn't hold back. Her candid story may trigger some. But for those wanting honesty, hope, and healing, this is 1% Better with Heather. The information and stories shared on 1% Better are based on host Heather's personal experiences with eating disorders and mental health challenges. Heather is not a licensed doctor, therapist, dietitian, or other health professional. Her advice and opinions should not be taken as professional medical advice. Please consult your physician or a qualified health provider regarding any medical or health-related issues. 1% Better also contains descriptions of eating disorders that may be triggering for some listeners. Discretion is advised.
Hey there, my little gaffers, and welcome to the 1% Better podcast. I have a very special guest in the studio today. I have Laura with me. Hello, Laura.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I am good. It is a lovely day in Colorado. We've got sunshine now, so that is definitely helping my mental health.
What's that? I live in Vancouver. Dear God.
Colorado, we get very bipolar seasons. So it goes from snowing and, just terrible, terrible weather to then 65 and sunny the next day. So it often kind of swings like my mental health, but I appreciate it. And I've learned to at least appreciate the good warm days.
Yes, I think me and you are in the same boat in the Colorado weather. I get that. Vancouver's a lot like that too, right? Like it'll rain and be cold. And then I'm wearing my winter jacket, like my parka, and then I'm wearing a bikini the next day. And I'm like, what is happening? And then you get like a little glimpse of happiness and it all goes to hell for another month.
Hopefully we're nearing the all around better weather days, because I think we all need it at this point.
Right? Oh God. I always say if I lived in Palm Springs, I'd be a very nice person.
I'm with you. I know. I'm like, man, I'm curious what that would do for me, like how much that would change my personality. But I also still appreciate my snarkiness. So I don't know if I totally want all of that to go away.
Right? No, I understand that. It's going to give away our edge because I'm pretty quick.
Exactly.
What would I do with no sarcasm?
Mm-hmm. I know. I wrote a book that literally it was heavily filled with sarcasm, and I feel like that was the whole point of it. So if I didn't have that, I don't think I would have the bulk of my personality, and I love that part of my personality, so that's not going away anytime soon.
Oh, that's awesome. So let's dive right in and introduce yourself. Tell us about you.
Absolutely. So I am an author. My book is called No, I'm Not Fine, Thank You, and it is all about my journey healing complex trauma. I'm a former neonatal intensive care unit nurse. I still do that part-time. I also have my own podcast, but basically I had a traumatic brain injury in 2021 that required emergency brain surgery, and I almost died. And I lost my independence. I lost the ability to really speak and do math and do a lot of just, basic things. But worst of all was I just sunk into the deepest, worst depression. And my anxiety, which I've always had anxiety for the entirety of my life, but it just hit peaks that I didn't even know were possible during that time. And fortunately, I just had this big wake-up call one day when I was facing the need for potentially another brain surgery and thinking I might actually die. And during this time, my thoughts were just so negative. I just thought there was no chance I was going to make it out of this. And I just realized one day, hang on, if I don't shift my mindset and start believing that healing is a possibility for me, I am going to die. And so the more I kind of started leaning into that, everything just led me back to trauma. And I thought, wait a second, I haven't had trauma. What are you talking about? And then, of course, that's when I realized, oh no, I actually have complex post-traumatic stress disorder because of the amount of trauma that I experienced in my childhood and my adulthood, and how it all kind of compounded on itself, and what that led to in terms of how I thought about myself, my behaviors, the way that I lived in every way. And it just kind of shattered the glass of my life. And everything really shifted from there. And I went really deep into trauma healing, healing my body, healing my brain, healing my anxiety, healing my PTSD. And it's brought me here to be a completely different person in many ways, but also just really being more my true self. And it's been a really amazing journey to get here.
So everyone's going to want to know, how did you get this traumatic brain injury?
Yeah, and of course, it's not even like a crazy, wild story. It was literally just I was playing with my friend's kid, fell backwards on stone, landed on the back of my head. And at first, I thought, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm a nurse. I'm good. Like, I got this. But I ended up with actually a skull fracture and significant bleeds that were actually compressing my brain, pushing it towards my brainstem. And if I hadn't had surgery when I did, I would have died, they said, likely within 24 hours, if not sooner.
Holy crap, I'm waiting for you to go through like a car window, you
Yep.
fell out of a building, airplane fell on you.
No, so it's funny because I of course can laugh about it because you have to, right? But all of my injuries and health problems, and I've had significant injuries and health problems, have all stemmed out of dumb shit. Frankly, I fractured my spine in my sleep. I fell in a parking lot and shattered my wrist in 8 places. Needed brain surgery after just falling backwards. Not doing anything exciting. It's wild, but that's just the way it's worked out for me, where it's never a fun story. It's all just random stuff that happens that ends up leading to something really significant.
Well, two thoughts. One, you need to be in like a hamster wheel bubble thing. Two, that your brain injury is it's what's coming to me right now is Liam Neeson's wife when she was skiing, and I believe it was like in Montreal. You know who
Yeah.
Liam Neeson is, poor guy.
Mhm.
And his wife just fell and she's like, no, I have a headache. And that was it.
Yeah.
That's scary. So what gave you the intuition to go to the hospital, be like, no, something's wrong, man?
I fought it so hard. I woke up I woke up the next morning and I had significant bruising underneath my eyes. And I hit behind my right ear and I had a lot of bruising in my left ear. And I remembered from nursing school, I was like, shit, this is a skull fracture. I know that. That's a classic sign. But I was still like, maybe it's not. And I just texted one of my friends, who's a physical therapist, and she was like, you need to be seen immediately. And so I'm with my boyfriend and I'm like, hey, can you take me to urgent care? And he's like, what? I was like, he's like, don't you mean the hospital? I was like, no, let's just go to urgent care. Just totally in denial, thinking it's not that serious. We go to urgent care and they're like, girl, why are you here? Get to the hospital now. And that's when everything just kind of happened really quickly. And yeah, I ended up having brain surgery, spent a couple days in the ICU, went home, and everything kind of went to shit during my recovery. But I feel like it happened for a reason. I hate saying it that way. I feel like that's such a blanket statement, but truly it did. The way all of my complications kind of transpired really led me towards opening the door and being open to trauma healing. And that led me to sharing my story. That led me to end up being in, rooms like this and talking to people about trauma really openly, which is something that I never would have done in the past. I never would have shared myself and my feelings with other people. Like, no way. I had such walls up. I was incapable of being vulnerable. I didn't show anybody those sides. And now that's what I'm doing almost every day. And I love it. And I really have learned to appreciate it and enjoy it.
Well, you just gave a really good piece of advice. So if you bang your head and you get some black eyes, get to the hospital ASAP. I didn't know that. So thank you for that. And so you fall, you bang your head, you go to hospital. Then what happens? Like what all goes down?
Sorry, it just totally cut out. Are you still there?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, now I hear you.
Okay, you
Sorry,
can start.
what was the last part you said?
Oh, I said, okay, so you go to the hospital. They're like, oh my God. What all happens in that time frame?
Well, so it was crazy because I was acting and looking so good. I mean, minus the fact that my face was all jacked up and whatnot, and I was vomiting a lot, but I was pretty fine. And so they were even kind of like, I guess we'll give you a CT scan, but otherwise, like, you're looking really good. But given, these signs, we'll do it. And then this was the worst part. They really just shouldn't let you read your medical records. Like, I don't know if they have this in Canada and other countries too, but a lot of places here, especially in Colorado, you can access your medical results before anyone talks to you about it, which is stupid. And even as a nurse, like, I know on the nursing side it's stupid, but on the patient side it's stupid because I was able to access my CT scan results and see that I had multiple levels of hemorrhages on my brain. And I didn't know what that meant, except for I knew it was bad and that it could kill me. And so I was just in full fledged panic mode. My boyfriend was trying to calm me down. I was like, there's no calming this one down. This is bad. And then soon after, of course, they came in and consented me for brain surgery. And it's funny because I remember it vividly and also not at all because it was such a blur of a moment where I'm thinking, okay, I have to have brain surgery. I might die. I might come out of this not okay as I am going into it. Who knows what's going to happen at this point? And of course, my family doesn't live out here. So I texted them saying, hey, so I'm about to go into brain surgery, by the way. I'm fine. Here's my boyfriend's info. Oh, by the way, I have a boyfriend. You can talk to him now about it. And it was just crazy. But thankfully, the surgery went really well. And the whole time I was in the ICU, they just kept being like, I can't believe how well you're doing. And I can't believe that you're alive because my bleeds were so severe. So there's really no good explanation as to why I was looking so good and why things worked out so well for me, given the fact that I had such a severe bleed. But soon after, that's when kind of, everything went to shit. I had a seizure. I developed a new brain bleed. That's when I really lost all of my cognitive abilities and was facing another brain surgery. And it was miserable because not even just, the pain, the healing, the unknown piece, but the not being able to do anything and having to sit with my thoughts and not go crazy from that was wild because I had always done everything possible to avoid being with my thoughts, to distract, do other things, avoid the anxiety, avoid the pain, avoid the critic. And I couldn't anymore. And it was awful. It was an awful experience.
So, how long are you in the hospital for all this?
So it was actually only about 4 days.
Really?
Yeah, so it was pretty
Oh,
quick and that's what's weird. It's because I was so good. Like, I came out of surgery, they were able to pull the breathing tube, and I was like this. I was pretty with it. I mean, not fully like this, but I was pretty with it. I was pretty good. And they were just kind of like, this is weird. We're not used to this. Go home. Good luck, kind of. And, I had follow-ups and things like that. But then, of course, during that time when they're like, rest, take care of yourself. I'm like, cool, yeah, I can do that. No, I wasn't doing that. I was doing still way too much. And I ended up developing a new bleed. And they were like, you're going to have another surgery if you don't stop and like hard stop your life and basically go on kind of like bed rest at home. And that's when everything really kind of broke within me. But also that breaking allowed me to really kind of pull myself out of it and realize, whoa, like, this is not the way that I should be thinking about everything. This is, why am I thinking about it this way? Why am I leaning into this mindset? And kind of the deeper I dug, that's when it just really exposed, oh, wait, I have a lot of trauma, like a lot of trauma. And started kind of going down that rabbit hole of all the therapies, all the tools, and really kind of exploring everything.
so you're at home. Now you're on bed rest with your thoughts, which is like probably the worst thing ever. Like, I can really empathize with you there. How did you learn to sit with all that and process it, though?
I mean, at the beginning, I fought it as much as I could, which ended up with me just having constant panic attacks, just crying, just complete misery because, when you're healing from a traumatic brain injury, you can't have screens, you can't be on your phone, you can't watch TV. I couldn't read. I felt terrible. I felt like trash. and I couldn't leave my condo. I lived alone, and it was winter. I couldn't really do anything anyways. And so at first I was just spiraling because I was like, how do I do this? How do I do this? What am I supposed to do? And that's just kind of when I had this one real pivotal moment where I recognized that I just kept thinking about, man, I just wish I never went to the hospital. I wish I had just died in my sleep and never had gone. And I was just kind of and I was thinking about my funeral, what that would have been like. And I was just going really, really heavy with all of that. And I just suddenly had this almost light bulb of like, whoa, this is not helpful. This is not a path that is going to lead me to actually healing. This is not a path that's going to lead me to not having to have another brain surgery and being able to get better. And I just had this like, oh shit, if I don't change the way I'm thinking about this and thinking about myself, it's going to be over. I am going to have another brain surgery. I'm not going to recover. It's just going to keep perpetuating itself. And that's when I started just kind of really going deep into mindset work specifically. And I listened to audiobooks and podcasts because that was kind of really all I could tolerate. And I was just kind of like, okay, I can start implementing these practices. I started meditating, really just trying to quiet those critical, panicky thoughts. And I did a lot of visualizing myself healing, a lot of visualizing myself getting better. And kind of, yeah, the deeper I dug, really every book, every podcast, everything that I listened to, the underlying source was almost always trauma. And not that that's the case for everybody, but a lot of it really stemmed out of trauma. And so that's what really kind of opened me up to the idea of, wait, well, I guess I did almost drown when I was a kid. And I have had all these weird unexplained health problems. I had a really awful negative marriage. Like I've had a lot of things actually happen. And then once I kind of started exploring each of those topics, that's when I realized, whoa, there's a lot more that I didn't even realize that happened to me that was traumatic or that I had repressed. And there was so much deeper that I had just been covering up with, living a fast life, working a ton, being a workaholic, being a perfectionist, drinking a ton, all these things. And now that when I was in this forced position of I can't do any of that. I can't really do anything at all. I had to kind of deal with it. I feel like I didn't really have a choice. And so it was, the best or not having a choice situation possible. And yeah, and that's what helped me get here and be alive today. Cause man, it was touch and go at some of those points, but ended up working out for the best.
Holy cow. Okay, so you're alone. You're not allowed to watch TV. You're not allowed to read. Like this, I don't know how you didn't. Well, I understand your thoughts. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Like I get it. Like that does sound like a really bad version of hell.
Yeah, truly.
And so with this brain injury though, too, did you get any sort of side effects? Like because I've had family members with brain injuries. They are not the same person that they once were. Did you have any of that?
Absolutely. So, I've recovered very well given where I was. So, initially when I was really fine and then I had to really go into shutdown mode, I had to stop doing speech therapy and physical therapy and all that stuff to avoid, having another surgery. And that's when the migraines came on extra strong. And that's when I really lost the ability, not fully to speak, but really to speak sentences. I had no short-term memory whatsoever. I couldn't remember what I did 5 minutes ago. I couldn't do basic addition or anything. When I finally, about the beginning, I guess it was the end of February, beginning of March. So my accident was early December, end of February, beginning of March. I was able to start I was cleared from having another surgery. That new bleed had resolved. And that's when I could start doing speech therapy and stuff like that again. And it was appalling because they were trying to figure out even what to have me do. And I couldn't even do the page where they had a bunch of coins and you had to add up the amount of coins to what it was. And I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't even fathom, like I couldn't make those connections in my brain. And it was really just devastating because I thought that, oh my God, how am I ever going to be independent again? I can't drive. I can't do math. I can't even speak a sentence. But I really just kind of leaned in on, okay, if I'm able to believe and visualize and get to the place that I can get there, I can heal, I can do this for myself. And I just totally went heavy on all of the speech therapy, all the things that I could do to heal. And I just kept reminding myself, I can get there, I can get there, I can get there. And I just had almost this like unwavering belief that I was going to heal. And so today, a couple years later, there's still some deficits. There's still some issues with word finding. I do a lot of, I have to use my eyes to look away to kind of find words and thoughts that I'm trying to gather. Math is still not the easiest thing, but also fuck math. Like I'm not trying to do complex math on the regular anyways, so I'm okay with that. But and then I do have some, just kind of physical deficits in the form of I can't tolerate a lot of stimulation, a lot of lights, a lot of noise. I get migraines. I get a lot of ringing in my ears. So there's definitely still things. I'm more fatigued. I have to sleep more. But ultimately, all this just comes down to I just have to take better care of myself, which is something I want to be doing anyways. So it's really not something that impacts my daily life. There's definitely still things that I notice, but for the most part, I'm able to function in the best way possible that I'm happy with.
Well, I give you a lot of credit for you saying that at the end. I'm happy with, because we were talking off camera where I talk about I have PTSD and I have an inner concussion, migraines, vertigo. I haven't seen a movie since 2016. I can't go into a movie theater. I can't go to a concert. I can't go swimming. I can't go on a boat. There's a lot of things. I can't even have a shower. It took me 3 years to figure out not to shower with the shower curtain closed because you'll fall out of it. Apparently, I'm a slow learner. But for you to say, no, I'm happy with it, I've learned to accept it. I don't think I can get on a plane either, right? So living in a very limited world and you say, I'm happy, says a lot. Like you're better than me, I'll say that.
I don't know about that. Thank you, but it's more just, you know, I my limits are not as severe as you would expect given my injury and the fact that I had surgery and almost died and all this stuff. They're still there, but I'm still able to do a lot. And when I hit those limits where I'm like, I gotta go, that's okay. I'm able to accept that. I used to really beat myself up about it, but I just realized like this is my body saying like no, like we're done, and I have to respect that. And the people around me get it and understand. And sometimes it just comes out of nowhere. Sometimes I'll just get a migraine and I'm just down for the count and I can't work. And I still do part time in the NICU and I will have to call in because I have a migraine and I can't show up and I can't be my best. And that sucks. But it's just kind of the reality. And I've just realized, at least for me, when I beat myself up about it, it doesn't do anything. Like it doesn't change it. So if I at least can accept it and just be like, okay, like it happens sometimes, but also I'm still able to do a lot of good other things, then cool. Like I'm happy to just live with it that way.
You are like a saint, I will say that. You have a very positive outlook for someone who could have a very, and really lack of better words, like you have a really good reason to be angry and bitter, and you choose to see the light and not the dark. What podcasts, what books were you reading to get to that spot? Because I'm sure a lot of people would love to know.
Absolutely. So, I mean, really, the big thing that started the real shift for me that I fully attribute changing the trajectory for my life for the better in terms of mindset was it was a lot of audiobooks. So, um, the first one is Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine, and that's all about how your body stores trauma. Because for me, not only have I had a lot of physical trauma, but I've also always had a lot of pain, a lot of muscle tension, and my body has held on to a lot. And so that was really pivotal for me to kind of explain a lot of the way that I was, a lot of my behaviors, a lot of my feelings or lack thereof in a lot of ways to help me heal. Um, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. I love that book. I hate that book. I'll be honest. I'm not a big Joe Dispenza fan, but I do think that book was really powerful for me because it weaves in a lot of neuroscience and the reasons why our thoughts are habits, they're patterns. We get glued and sucked into these cycles of thinking certain ways that were taught to us at an early age and that we've just continued to adapt and live that way. And it's not necessarily us, or it doesn't have any implications on our identity or who we are, but we just think that way because we think that way. And so there's tools, especially through things like meditation, where you can break that and make those changes and be different. Because, oh my God, if you had told me 3 years ago, a little more, that I was going to be a positive person, I would have been like, no fucking way. Like, I would have never
You are
believed
my
that.
person.
Yeah, because I was always, my friends called me Wednesday Adams because I was so negative, and I was always finding the negative in everything. And I almost wore that as a badge of honor. I thought, oh, I'm cool because like I give no fucks and like I'm a badass in this way, which, to each their own. In some ways it works, but also I just I could only see negative. And I was able to kind of pull myself out of that place and really kind of see my thoughts as thoughts and not as my own identity and as a part of me, as a way to change that. And a lot of that really came down to just becoming hyper aware of the way I'm thinking, and especially when I'm feeling anxious, like the stories that I'm telling myself, because often it's the same shit on repeat. And once I get in those places, I'm able to use a lot of, nervous system regulation tools. I'm a big fan of punching pillows or going for a walk or doing things to literally interrupt that thought cycle so I don't do it anymore. And that's been really profound and life changing for me.
I always say my pillow needs therapy.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
I do a lot of, I'm a screamer, I'm a yeller, but I'll go in the shower and like have a whole breakdown in there. My shower needs therapy too. But, it's just when you lay down the sword, as I say, and own it and be like, I don't want to be like this anymore. And this isn't serving me. And walking through that first door is so difficult. The doors of positivity, right? So how long did it get you to get through like the next door? Okay, I did this today. When did it clue in and be like, well, this could just be on repeat?
I don't even know. Like for me, I feel like I've just been on this constant, like, I don't know how else to say it other than like upward battle. And it's not a battle. It's more just kind of working through all of these walls that I've built up for, over 3 decades of my life. And it was all protective. It was all things that were well intentioned, things I learned from parents or teachers or other people, or things that happened in the way that I responded. And my body and my brain just kind of stayed in those loops as a survival mechanism. And as I've been able to, for me, I'm a big nerd. I've really gone deep down the rabbit holes of neuroscience, and just learning has really helped me kind of heal and be able to think about things differently. And so recognizing like, well, damn, like no wonder I was so anxious and needing to be a type A perfectionist. Like no wonder all these things were a part of me because of everything that happened in my life. No wonder I thought this way, because I thought at, 5 years old, this is how I could keep myself safe. This is what would protect me. And so being able to kind of look back on that lens of my childhood and even just my younger adult self and just say, of course I thought this way. Like, of course I felt this way. This is all I knew at the time. This was the only way I knew how to get through. And this is what I did. And I built up those patterns so significantly that they just became so standard and routine. So when I do, and of course, I'm not just like, oh my God, life is so great, like, yay, all the time. Like, no way. I have plenty of breakdowns all the time. I still have a lot of moments of getting really negative and just feeling like, fuck this. But now at least I'm able to recognize when I'm going down those paths and be like, okay, let's feel into this for a little bit, but also like find a different way to move on, because this isn't actually helping me in any way.
Yeah. And you living in fight or flight, which you were, someone told me like last year, do you know living like you isn't normal? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean it's not normal? And that that's a kick in the head when you think you are kind of normal, and you're looking at other people like they got 5 heads, to come out and be like, oh, okay, I got to change myself. That takes a lot of courage. Like, no one, change sucks. No one wants change.
Oh yeah. No, it's funny because especially first when I started pursuing trauma therapy and I did a bunch of different therapies, and every single therapist said to me, like, you have wildly high anxiety. And I was like, so, and I remember saying to one therapist in particular, so like other people don't think this way? Like this isn't normal? And she was just immediately, no, no. And I was like, oh shit.
Right.
Cause you know, it's all you know. This is all I knew.
Yep.
This is all I've ever known. So to me, this was normal. I assumed everyone else got really sweaty and anxious before doing everything. And, just like little things like that. And and then I would see people who'd be like, well, I don't. And I'd be like, you totally fucking do. You're just not saying it. But it's not, but it's true. It's the fact that when you lived in fight or flight for the majority of your life, you're so hypervigilant that your mind is just always going. And you don't realize that that's not the case for a lot of people. It is still the case for a lot of people, but it's not the case for everybody. And being able to, I mean, shit, I'm still in the process. It's going to take years because this has been the majority of my life, but getting to this place of safety within myself and getting out of fight or flight, like it's no joke. It's hard, but it is worth it for those moments of calm and comfort and like feeling like that sigh of relief instead of that crazy hyper stressed out place.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I know me, like I'm all like tense all the time. Someone's like, oh, you got to relax. I'm like, if I relax, the world's coming to an end. No, right? Like I'm stone. I cannot move. And when I started healing and I could sleep at night and my brain wasn't going, oh, I'm just going to give you the last 45 years of your life of hell, right? And not having those memories on loop. And I was like, oh, this is what sanity is.
Yeah,
It's kind of nice.
truly. No, it's wild because it just becomes so normal to us that you're like, oh, this must be just like not only like my normal baseline, but everyone's. And then when you realize it's not, you're like, well, that's weird. Like, how do
Right.
people live then? But then also for me, like, oh my God, I mean, I have spent and currently still spend so much time doing as much as I can for like feeling safe in my body, doing a lot of, meditating and like stillness and getting to those really calm states because I just tend to just so easily completely go back into the fight or flight crazy, like, let's go a million miles an hour, like, let's just do all the things and whatever. I have to be very intentional about not getting there because I'm so still wired to do it. And it's something that's probably going to take many, many more years too. And that's okay. I mean, it's kind of it's the 1% better. It's those 1% moves every day that make the difference. And when I look back on even just where I was 6 months ago, I'm like, damn, like I made a lot of progress. And it's really easy to get caught up in it feels like you're not making progress, but when you actually look back to how how you felt, how anxious you were, how frequently you were having panic attacks, how low you felt, you can really see those differences. And that's been a really big driving force for me is to kind of have those measurables to look back on.
Well, my friend, you are an inspiration. Let me tell you, like I think you are amazing. And you wrote a book with all this going on. And I love the title. I just love it. I'm like, oh, you are my person. No, I'm not fine. Thank you. No, I'm not fine.
Exactly. Well, because we're also used to saying we're fine when we're obviously not. It's something that I've done, and I still sometimes unconsciously do, but we are all used to saying that we're not fine. And so that was the point. So I really wanted to, I felt compelled to share my story. I felt compelled to share it in a relatable, realistic way where it's not going to re traumatize people. It's something that will hopefully inspire people to maybe start healing their own or reach out to a friend or family member who they might know is struggling. And yeah, I love a good snarky title. It's my favorite.
I, I'm just going to yell it when I say it, though. So give us an in-depth look of what's inside the book. Like what do you go into?
So I do a much deeper dive into my story and how my traumatic brain injury really was the catalyst to me going down the trauma healing rabbit hole and how I really go in depth about the 5 years prior and a lot of the things that happened in my life in terms of my health, in terms of some trauma. And then I go deep into my trauma healing journey and really all the things I've learned. And I'm super vulnerable. I share a lot of deep, dark shit that I normally wouldn't have shared in the past. I wouldn't have told anyone. It was a lot of stuff that I hadn't really told anyone except for maybe therapists. But I felt it was really important to just be really honest because reading, I've read plenty of books that are either super in-depth, scientific, over your head about trauma. That shit isn't really helpful. But then there's also the ones that are either too much detail, too traumatizing, or that are just kind of like, yay, I worked through it. I'm barely scratching the surface. And I'm like, no, like, fuck that. I want to be real. I want it to be real because that's what really makes the difference for people. And I wanted my book to make a difference and hopefully help people. So that was the whole point. It goes deep into all of the struggles and wins and various parts of my trauma healing story and kind of where I'm at and continuing on.
So what would your advice be for people who are coming out of a traumatic event to advocate for themselves like you did?
So I actually do have a chapter fully on advocating for yourself because not only did I have issues advocating for myself in life, in my healing, but also especially with a lot of my medical and health issues. But I think the biggest thing is just you really have to find that way to kind of tune into yourself. And whether that's through, journaling, meditation, being outside, dancing, whatever it is, punching pillows, but just having those moments where you can kind of bust through those kind of feeling walls that we often don't let ourselves get to, and then just see kind of what's on the other side. Because for me, the resistance at the beginning of all of it was almost like it almost stopped me from even pursuing trauma healing at all because it was terrible. It was terrifying. I was like, fuck this is going to be awful. But once I took those first steps, it got a little easier to take the next one and then a little easier to take the next one. So I think it's really important to just first kind of find whatever it is that helps you kind of sit with yourself and maybe kind of work through some emotions and see where that takes you. See what that opens you up to. See, what feels good. Does that help? Is that helping you? Maybe you can open yourself up to, books, podcasts, other things that can kind of be the catalyst that starts you on healing and kind of helping to get through.
And you have a podcast, right?
I do.
No Filter?
Yes, Healing No Filter.
Like you are my person. I think we're twins. Like honestly, I'm I like this girl.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, so that's just kind of even further of a lot of stuff from my book. So it's a lot of shit that I'm personally dealing with and how I'm getting through and what I'm learning. And again, it's, me being real. I curse a lot too. I love it. I'm just being my full authentic self, but I'm talking a lot about just a lot of the shit that happens in healing that maybe people don't talk about or people don't recognize is going on for them and kind of ways to help get through.
Yeah, and I love that because there's so much of people like everything's shiny, happy people, unicorns. I'm like, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. If you've come out of any sort of trauma, addiction, brain injury, like cancer, you name it, we're all a little bit fucked up, right? And it's not shiny, happy people. It's just not.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And I think like the fact that it's like, again, like if you had told me a couple years ago, like, hey, Laura, you're going to just start being this like super vulnerable person, sharing like the inner workings of your mind and how you're feeling. Again, I would have been like, no way, not me. But I love it now because I think it's just real. Like it's the real me. And this is really how people feel, but people are often too afraid to think it, say it, admit it, talk about it. And so the more that we talk about it, the more it's okay for other people to feel that it relates to them and for them to talk about it and for them to start healing. Because if no one talked about it, we wouldn't be here. No one would be doing anything. We'd all just be privately in our own little world trying to survive and stay alive. But I don't want to do that anymore. And so for me, talking about it and sharing the things that I'm using to get through, I think is the most powerful thing that I can be doing.
And I always say follow the guides. Experts are great, but guides, people who have lived it, are your people, right? And they're going to tell you a whole lot more than anyone that went to school and read a book. Like, not to go against any doctor or anything, because I really do respect them because they went to school for 1,000 years and I didn't. But if I always say, like, I couldn't counsel someone coming off heroin. I've never done heroin. What the hell do I know? Go talk to someone who came off heroin. I'm not going to talk to you about brain injuries. Go talk to you. You want to talk to someone about bulimia? Come talk to me. Right? Like,
Totally.
PTSD, talk to us both.
No, exactly. No, I'm so with you though, because I think the lived experience piece is a whole different side than the other part of it. And for me, don't get me wrong, I've had plenty of great therapists, but a lot of them have also just helped me kind of figure it out on my own. And not like I'm just
Yeah.
totally figuring everything out on my own fully, but like it's been me using different resources and different tools to figure out what works best for me and how to make that work for other people, or kind of
Yeah.
use that as a guide. And I think we all just kind of have to individualize our own processes and piece it all together for ourselves. And that's from learning what other people did and maybe using some of that and a little bit of this and a little bit of that from different people to see how that impacts you for the better, hopefully.
Yeah, because I always said, coming out of this hell, I almost died. Not like you, but almost died. And when I was going through my healing journey, I just thought, I don't want someone else to feel like this, right? I know what it's like to think, well, maybe the jump's not that bad, right? And maybe not being here wouldn't be that bad. And that, I mean, I make fun of it now in my sick sense of humor, but I don't want someone to feel like this at all, right? And there's a lot of people who can't take it, right? And that's sad, right? Like, at the end of the day, where they can't find their guides, their people, their village to
Absolutely. Yeah,
help
I'm
them.
with you on that because, you know, there were a lot of moments in time that throughout my life, many that I really could have used a guidebook for how to get through, but I wasn't really ready for it. And I didn't even really know that existed. And now I think there is just so much more visibility and so much more talking about it and stuff that there are a lot more resources that can kind of help people get their feet wet with exploring healing. And yeah, I mean, having the realness along with it, I think is so huge because if you just have, someone on TV who looks all put together or on social media, everything looks perfect in their life, I'm not going to relate to that. I'm not going to maybe take that to heart quite the same as someone who's like, hey, look at all the fucked up shit I've been through and made it on the other side. Like, listen to me, baby.
Yeah. Those are more fun people. I like those people.
Same. And they're usually funny. So that always helps too. You got to have a little funny in there.
And speaking of social media, so where do you go? So you got a podcast, you got a book. Are you going to write another book? Like, what's your big plan here, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm in the early stages of writing my second book. And it's really just I'm just digging deeper. And that's really the whole point is I'm still kind of sharing my story, but kind of going deeper into like, oh, I thought I hit deep levels of healing, which I did. But in reality, I was really scratching the surface. Like I'm in it for the long haul. And I'm just going to keep coming up with more shit that I need to heal and hitting deeper and deeper levels of healing, which is great. And so I would just want to keep sharing my story through my podcast, through writing. I really love writing. And so that'll be coming down the pipeline at some point.
Well, and you're still so young. I don't know if you have kids, but if you don't and you plan on to, well, you'll have a lot of healing from that too.
I know. I'm like, I'm just on this. I'm like, damn. The moment I love, especially seeing all that, like all those dumb memes that are like, man, the moment that you realize that healing is actually just a forever thing, and you're just always going to be in this, you're like, fuck. But also, like, I can't stop because I love it. But it's a forever thing for sure. But it is great. Like, of course, I can bitch about it and complain. I'll always find something to bitch or complain about. Let's be real. But truly, it all just got to keep getting better. Even when I do have those new challenges, new struggles, hit those lows, have those panic attacks, things like that, it always still does get better. So it's a good way to just kind of keep my eye on the prize and keep moving forward.
So, and I think you and I think the same way. Like, I think if this never happened to me, all the crap I went through, I'm with you. I wouldn't be talking about it either.
Yeah.
There, do you feel like you had some weirdo, lack of a better word, I'll say spiritual, like something came to you and be like, aha, this is my path now. This is what I need to do. This is what I need to share. Because I sort of had that, not to get into like big spiritual stuff, but
Oh
it was
yeah.
like a shovel to the face.
Yeah, no, literally, like it's funny the progression of starting in 2017, my life just getting like shittier and more health problems and more injuries and more like things that were just happening that I was still like, like I'm good. And then the brain injury, it's like, no, bitch, like you're gonna start figuring this out now. Like this is what we're
Yeah.
trying to tell you. So that totally inspired a spiritual awakening for me that also opened me up in a very different path and allowed me to find a lot of meaning in the things that have happened to me and given me more of the courage to speak about it. Because I think if I hadn't, I would have just been like, cool, this happened, move on, I'll still be a nurse and whatever. But really, that was a big inspiration for me to share my story because I'm like, shit, maybe this happened to me so that I can help other people, so that I can be that relatable person and can help other people in a different way than maybe others do.
A guide,
Mhm.
right? And hey, man, we don't always get to pick our gifts that we get, but lucky us.
Right?
Right?
I know. I'm like, damn, like if I chose this life for me, like fuck, I chose a lot of shit to get through, but here we are.
Right? I think about that too. And I'm like, why didn't I choose the Beverly Hills Housewives to be my parents?
I know. Truly, I'm like, man, I could have just been sitting pretty and like on a pool, like
Right?
sipping on a drink, but no, instead I'm just dealing with trauma. But that's okay.
Not our path, my friend. Not our
Nope.
path. We have to do things the hard way,
Yep,
but find the funny and the fucked up, right?
absolutely.
And that's, I don't know, that gets me through every day. So you're going to write another book. You got a podcast. Life is going well. You're going to go on a book tour? You want to come to Vancouver?
I would love to come to Vancouver. I've never been to Canada, which is dumb because I lived in upstate New York for a long time, so I was close enough. But, you know, I'm in this weird place, and I'm not going to say weird. It's a good place. It used to feel very weird where I'm just kind of seeing where everything takes me. I'm being very open-ended, whereas before I was always very rigid and structured and I have to have a plan, gotta abide by the plan. But right now I'm just kind of doing, seeing where everything goes and just kind of being open to that because I feel like, the right opportunities are going to open up and I'm going to feel that like, hell yeah, this is my calling. This is what I want to be doing. If it's different than what I'm doing now, and I'm just going to kind of keep seeing where that takes me.
And isn't that a beautiful feeling? Just be like, let's just see what happens.
Yeah. Because especially for someone who has spent a life of feeling the need to control everything, I'm like, hell yeah, let's just see where it goes. Let's loosen the grip on the reins and just see what happens. And I feel good about that.
Yeah, I'm with you there. The more you try to stranglehold something, the more it goes between your fingers. The more you're just, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're just
100%. 100%.
I'm not like that all the time, but some days.
Right. No, exactly.
It's
I'm
learning.
not just sitting here all the time like, yay, see where it takes me. Like I definitely still have a lot of elements that are there that want to control, but I try my best and I'm mostly kind of trying to go that direction.
Well, I'm so excited that you came on, and I'm very glad to have met you. And I think you're an awesome human being and a great guide for everybody. A lot of people can learn a lot from you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Heather.
You're going to go big places. Huge.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I love that you have similar personality to me because that just makes it so much more fun. So this has been such a treat. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, thank you. So before we go, tell everyone where they can follow you.
Absolutely. So I have a website. It's laurarenner.me. That's you can find my book there, a little more info about me, my podcast. My podcast is on I think all the podcast streaming things. It's called Healing No Filter. And then I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Laura_Ren, RENN. I'll be honest, I'm not the most consistent on social media. It's not my favorite thing. I enjoy it at times, but to a limit. But you can find me there. I do post some stuff from my personal life and just some of the kind of nuggets of wisdom that I'm learning along the way. So if you want to know more, you can check me out there.
Well, we'll totally follow you everywhere. And I can't wait to see what else happens for you. I can't.
Thank you. That really means a lot. I appreciate it.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks again for being here. I hope you come back.
Oh,
You're gonna write another book. We need you back.
I would love to come back. I'm like, I've got so much trauma to dig up. Like we could come up with a bunch of different ideas.
Oh yeah, you want to just have swap war stories? Because I'm all down for that.
That could be like a 36-hour just binge, just straight
right? Oh yeah. I don't see anything wrong with that though. That's healing.
Totally. I'm with you.
Finding your people. All right, my friend. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Oh,
that's all for this episode of 1% Better. To continue the conversation, head over to our website at www.1percentbetter.ca, where you can access more stories and resources. We'd also love it if you subscribed and left us a review on your favorite podcast platform. And remember, friends, progress takes patience, perspective, and sometimes a little help from people who get it. So be kind to yourself and others as we work to get 1% better every day. We'll see you back here next week.